Steve.
JB, how you doing? KG?
Very well. How you doing?
Doing good. Nice to talk to you. I'm out here in Napa.
What a gorgeous countryside you got outside your window.
Yeah, Napa, California. Big fan.
Napa Valley?
Yeah, you know it.
Very nice. Cage, did you just rip a super loud fart?
Nope.
I think you did.
Like it sounded like a rip.
Yes.
He might have just moved on a little bit. And it sounded like an explosion.
Would you guys do a promo for my podcast, Concert Pipeline?
Yes.
Concert Pipeline?
Yes.
Hello, this is Tenacious D. I'd just like to say that we fully endorse Concert Pipeline.
Lovely.
Is that right?
That was great. And
Love you.
Have a great one. I want to start out, by asking you, how are you doing through everything that's going on right now? I think it's important to kind of start with that because we're in just such a weird time,
Well, when it first all started, for the first, I would say 3 months or so, I was really trying to figure it all out. Just some days I would kind of be okay, and then other days I would be really sad, and like just depressed because, obviously, the whole music industry and everything, there's so much uncertainty, so I was just crazy, just feeling really weird. But what happened was I started to like think about telling my story, and I start, thinking about like just doing little guitar videos on YouTube. I was like, okay, well, up to this point, let's talk about, some of the people I played with, what I had to do, what I like about guitar, what I like about music, and just telling stories. So I just done that 7 days every day, So that kind of, when I reached out to people and people gave me really good positive feedback, it just kind of helped me feel like I had something to do, something to say, and it was cool, So that's basically what I done. And I did do a little private lessons with some students, small number. And, we were all in it together, sort of, all trying to get through it.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, right? I interviewed someone yesterday, and he was kind of saying the same thing, right? Is that everybody's got a story about how this is affecting them, and being able to slow down and listen to kind of what people are going through, what the challenges are, how this is affecting their lives is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I didn't want to take the approach of just being so, like, oh, everything is terrible and everything. I just wanted to kind of talk about some good things about music and good things about life and, the things that I can do at home, like play a lot of music, records and things like that, and just kind of, take myself away for a little while,
Yeah. And so tell me about that positivity that you're finding. Like, I mean, how is the music that you're writing coming across, and how are you channeling that?
Well, the one thing is, like doing the videos and things like that, it just definitely, um, just for that little time that I would post the videos, it would just take my mind somewhere. So I haven't really written too many songs during this time. It's been more like, just trying to, you know, f- well, what a good one is like I never would have done YouTube videos like 7 days a week. I never would have done that if this hadn't happened. I
Yeah.
never would have thought about things in a different way if, I wouldn't have done so much posting on Instagram and, just finding how to do that in my way, wanting to do it my way and not just, guitar solos all the time and just tell my story, because people don't really know unless you tell them. So
Yeah.
if you feel something or if you feel like from your perspective that you can help somebody, I figure now's the time.
Yeah. And so how have your fans been responding to this, right? Like, how, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the
I
different
mean,
platforms.
yeah, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. You talking about things that I didn't even really think about." And it may be a simple thing, but just a different point of view because I've been doing this for over 30 years. So, it's time to kind of talk about it a little bit and not just assume people know my history.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's been pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. So I want to hear about your history as well. And so let's start it back at the beginning. I mean, so I know your father had a church, and that was a big part of what drove you into music. But
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
there was a lot of music in your family outside of even just the church and your dad, right?
Yeah, it was like the church was where everything happened for the first, 10, 15 years of my playing music. My older brother played guitar and just coming in, you know, having to accompany anybody who would sing a song, and anybody would sing a song. You didn't think about the key, the structure, or anything. You just have to try and make it sound as good as you can. So that's quite good training on all levels, ear, rhythm, everything. So having that whole thing and such a positive way of looking at music. I mean, positivity, love, everybody together. I mean, having all those things, was just so, I was very lucky to have that. So
Yeah.
that's really kind of where it started.
Yeah. And so tell me about your brother and how he mentored you. What was that relationship like, and what did you learn from him?
Well, he was sort of like, he knew that I was really into it. So he didn't really have to like, say too much. He would just kind of by example would show me. I learned how to properly hold my pick and learned about chords and getting a warm tone and a clean tone and being melodic and all of those things. He told me I have to learn how to accompany. I need to learn that, and I would just do it because I was so into guitar. And then his record collection, having everything from Jimi Hendrix to George Benson to Van Halen. He just loved guitar, and Guitar Player magazines and all of those, things were like brother hand-me-downs.
Yeah. So how much time did you spend early on, like learning the guitar, becoming really comfortable with it? What did that look like?
Well, I started playing guitar probably around 8 or 9 years old, so it's kind of been with me for, my whole life pretty much. So really to think about, when did it seems like I always was messing around with the guitar in some way. So I would say, yeah, 8 or 9, I just kind of like, it was like I already was a guitar player. I just had to try and figure out how to make it make different sounds with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so did you ever take any lessons, or was it all self-taught?
It was pretty much all self-taught. Like there were different players that were better than I was that would show me little things and, like chords and the name of chords and stuff. I would just kind of pick that up from older musicians and just listening, and stuff like that mainly.
And you spent a lot of time in a guitar shop growing up as well,
Yeah,
right?
Music Works. Yeah, Music Works in Lawndale, California. And that was a big thing to see actual guitar players making a living at playing music and, just coming in and, just learning things from players, jamming with, the local guitar players. It was just a wonderful place. It is
Yeah.
a wonderful place.
And and so what sort of lessons did you learn kind of from that experience of spending so much time there? Like, what did you take away?
Well, everything from like records, like a couple friends from the Music Works who were into like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So we would jam Stevie Ray Vaughan all day. Or some other guitar player would come in and he was into jazz. So he would show me like how to play a major seventh chord or just a progression or some guy would come in with a cool rig, amplifier and a guitar, and then be like, wow, or somebody would have some different pickups that I never heard of, or pedals, or, you know, many different things, like that.
Yeah. And you mentioned Hendrix a little bit earlier as well. So tell me, I mean, it was one particular performance you saw that really helped, really made you kind of latch on to his music, or?
Well, Hendrix was like in different points in my life, Hendrix meant different things. Like early on, it was just like, wow, this force on guitar, and he's like one of the greatest guitar players of all times, and all the sounds that he can get, and everything. And then when I got a little older, it was like, wow, the rhythm section, man, they're so cool, and these songs are cool, and stuff like that. But then when I got even older, it was like about the songwriting, how he put things together, how he played in the studio, the sounds he got, and everything like that. That was, so it's always meant different things.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so let's talk kind of a little bit about how you came to the blues, because I know you've been rooted in the blues for majority of your career, but
Yeah.
uh, tell me about where that connection came from for you.
Well, the connection really is my family's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and it just seemed like it was always a part of, like conversation, the church, the Southern Gospel Church. That connection with the blues is like one and the same. Quartet gospel music, like the Dixie Hummingbirds, the Mighty Clouds of Joy. It's really bluesy, rhythm and blues, bluesy. And my parents would talk about people like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and different people like that they listened to when they were young. So I just was always fascinated, and I want to know, who are these people? What is this all about? BB King, and stuff. So I found out, and I really loved it. And I just, I played in all different kinds of bands and stuff, but I always wanted to kind of get back to, or get to playing blues.
Yeah, and BB King, like, I mean, for you, like, he really shaped a lot of your musical style, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, his playing, so many different periods of BB from like the late 40s all the way into the 70s, his style, changed, and he got more streamlined and more, just fluid, and vibrato, and just, ah, man, it's amazing.
And so, I mean, as you're looking up to BB, and I mean, tell me what you took into your music from BB's. Like, how did you kind of try to parlay that?
Well, BB King, his guitar playing, for one, like he has a really authoritative, a very classy, soulful way of playing. When he bends a note, it's like the major pentatonic a lot of times, and it just has this really thing that makes you happy, but you still feel like this soulful, heartfelt thing, just with a few notes. So that just is so, it makes you so excited. It makes you so happy. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was one of the most famous musicians of all time, in blues. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for your own music yourself, I mean, I get the sense that like early on, I mean, you really resonated as a musician and not as much as a songwriter per se.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
tell me about the transformation for you to kind of being able to incorporate lyrics and into your music.
Well, that was a very slow process because I've only been doing that for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, because I just wanted to try and be the best guitar player, best accompanying guitar player, best musician I could be, and just accompany people and make the music sound good. So that was sort of my focus early on. But I realized that I have more to say maybe than that. I want to, because to me, a guitar solo in music is even better suited when it's inside a great song, if you have a great song. So, I started to go down this journey of thinking about singing, like, because I wanted to have my own band, and I want to sing, and I want to be a front man. So, songwriting, singing, they kind of go together, and, different musicians kind of inspired me. Even like Gary Clark Jr., I would see him when I was younger, play when he played in clubs in Austin, and it was inspiring because there's this young guy, younger than me, singing, playing, doing his thing. And it was just sort of this freedom. And another guy was Nick Curran, who I was in a band with. And they were just doing their thing, and they were their own men, and they could just front a band. They could just go anywhere and sing, play. Yeah, it was just very inspiring. So that's
Yeah.
what kind of started it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And so tell me about your relationship with Kim Watson and what she, kind of working with her brought to you and kind of
Oh,
how,
you mean Kim Wilson, the
Wilson. I
singer
said,
from?
I said
Oh,
Watson.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Junior Watson and then Kim Wilson. Kim Wilson was great. I started with Kim in a blues band in around 2000, and I started playing in this blues band. And that was really a lot of fun because you're playing really traditional blues. And that's where I was at that time, playing really traditional blues. So it was sort of like playing, and like really playing what you were into at that time. That's like really cool. And he's pretty you have to really be on your game to play with him. So it was really good school for me. And then how he fronted the band and his command and stage presence really influenced me a lot.
Yeah. And so that brought you to the Fabulous Thunderbirds ultimately, right?
Well, yeah, I played with the blues band first and then Charlie Musselwhite in between those two things. So Chicago blues legend Charlie Musselwhite, that was a thing that really brought me into my own, playing my own style in my own way, and he just gave me the room to do what I want, and find myself and find my playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And so tell me about how you found your voice through those changes in band dynamics. Like, I mean, was it something where you're like, okay, I've worked with the band here for a while now, and I get the feeling, I want to kind of branch out on my own a little bit and explore my own roots.
Yeah, well, I was playing in those bands and I had a lot of fun, but I started having other influences too, listening to other kinds of music and things like that, and just sort of itching to do my own thing. So I felt rather than try and play these other influences on their gig and their vision, maybe it's better to find my own to do. So that's kind of what I done, and it took a long time, but that's ultimately what I done, just
Yeah.
done my
And
own thing.
yeah. And did it feel like, jumping into, a cold pool sort of a little
Yeah,
bit, like build your own audience?
absolutely. It was scary, and then too, it was like 2007, 2008, so the market crashed. I mean, it was terrible time for the economy in Los Angeles to quit your day job, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you, I mean, so at what point did you kind of quit your day job, so to speak, where you're like, okay, I'm all in on music. I'm going in fully and gonna,
Well, I never really worked a day job. I just always played music, in some way, shape, form. It was definitely difficult to do most of the time, but some people are designed as people to just go full on into it, and some people just don't. It's too difficult, and I was just one of those people that I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it no matter what happens. I'm all in.
Mhm.
So, some people are road people, some people aren't road people. Some people like music, but they don't like it enough to dedicate everything to it and not really know what's going to happen or what the future is going to hold.
Yeah.
So I
Were there,
guess I was,
oh,
hmm?
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I guess I was one of those people that, just like, come on, let's go.
Were there any points when you were on the road where you questioned it, whether, okay, this is really challenging going, having to live on the road
Yeah,
like this?
every day.
Yeah.
But, like, what else would I be doing? I don't know because I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah, yeah, but it brought you happiness and you were able to,
Yeah.
do what you enjoyed, right?
Yeah. If you do what you love, you can definitely withstand more things, I think.
Yeah. And so let's move forward to, I guess, a couple of years ago where you have your album Hold On. And
Hmm.
that was really an album kind of that was reflective of your life, right?
Yeah, that was really, I really, I wrote all the songs, arranged, sang, done everything on that record. So I was really proud of that record. It's a kind of a reflection on my whole time of playing and where I was at that time and the ways that I want to express myself and say through song, and music. So I was really proud to be able to do that, accomplish that.
Yeah. And so how did you approach that? Like when you went in, did you write the songs and then, go in and record them? Did you do a lot of work in the studio? What was your?
Well, I had pretty much the whole idea for the song, the 8 songs that I done. I pretty much had that whole idea when I went into the studio, and I played with 2 musicians that were really, you know, wonderful. They were great to work with, and they really tried to give me what I was looking for as far as the songs. And it was not much talking on Hold On. We pretty much played the song, and they gave it the right feel. I think we maybe rehearsed for a couple of hours before we went in the studio. And next thing, because I really admired the way the guys played, so it was easy. I could really hear them on those songs.
Yeah. And so for you, when you're going in and making a blues album, I know there's a lot of, a level of improv in blues as well. Like, can you tell me about that, from your perspective? How much is, prepared for you versus, ahead of time versus how much you go in and be like, okay, let's feel this out and see where we get.
Every once in a while there'll be some songs or something like that that I kind of work out a little bit more. But I really get off. I get off on the adrenaline of not really knowing what's going on. If I have the confidence in the other musicians that I'm playing with, I really like to kind of just see what's going to happen. I like flying by the seat of my pants. you know. So it's really a lot of fun, and it's a lot of improvising. Of course, you have stock things that you kind of play, but the thing is, my mark of a good show is for something to happen that never quite happened the same way. If I'm just doing the same thing, just trying to get through the show, then I'm not really having fun.
Yeah.
But it's fun to me to like challenge myself. It's like riding a roller coaster or something. So I
Yeah.
like that. I even do that in the studio, actually. I mean, I'll just play a solo and see what happens. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. And so when you take the songs from the album and play it live, like how does it translate for you when you're taking it on the stage?
I actually think a lot of times when I'm writing a song, I'll think about it. How would I play it live? Even when I'm writing it, I'll think about, okay, how's this going to go across live, and will I be able to sell it, to the audience in a convincing way. So
Yeah.
I'll think about it from almost day one. How it's going to be? How's this going to sound if I play it with just a trio or a 4-piece band, or. I mean, I don't know. I'm weird like that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so are there songs that when you're going in and making them, and then afterwards you're listening back, okay, you're like, okay, what was I thinking? How can I play this live? It's like,
Yeah.
is it gonna work in the live format?
Yeah. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work as well live. Sometimes it's just sort of like, uh, or you play it the same way and I get bored with it or something like that. So it just depends, I guess. You
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
yeah.
it's unique. Each song is unique. Some you think are gonna go great live and they don't go too great.
It happens, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about My Blues Pathway a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to the album a couple times,
Mhm.
and I dig it. I mean,
Thank you.
I love the riffs, I love the feel, of
Thank you.
it, and I can tell you put a lot of yourself into it. And so, kind of coming off of, your most recent album, Hold On, like, how do you go from that to this new album? Tell me about that progression for you.
Well, the Hold On gave me the confidence of writing songs and all of this. And also at the same time, I kind of had this thing where I wanted to revisit some of my blues, real blues background and what got me excited about blues in the first place. Got me excited about, like going out to see live music. And I wanted to kind of bring that into the next generation of players. It's something special about, certain players and hearing them live and things. And if I could incorporate some of the things from, the records that I like, like everything from like Robert Cray to Chicago blues to like country blues and all that kind of stuff. And it's really like a pathway. I had to do Hold On, and that was a collection of songs that I had to write and do this whole thing. But the pathway led me back to what got me excited in the first place, and that's just a small part of what I wanted to do on this new record. So it was really exciting to play with some of the guys that I played with for 25 years. The drummer Dave Kidd I played with for 25 years. And to be able to co-write a couple songs with Robert Cray's bass player, Richard Cousins, is like amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in this, you're like, you do a handful of covers, right? But they're not the most well-known covers, but covers that I think are important to you and have a lot of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AC Reed is just, that song, I'd Rather Fight Than Switch, has been for many years. I'm like, man, I want to do this song. I want to get around to covering this song, and also like the Juke Boy Bonner song with Charlie Musselwhite guesting on it was another thing that just, the lyric just had this deep thing that's sort of different than me being like the happy-go-lucky Kirk Fletcher. It's like, man, just those songs resonated with me. Fattening Frogs for Snake by Sonny Boy Williamson. I always loved, so much,
Yeah. Well, it's really awesome, and I'm sure you're excited for it to come out next month, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's great, it's so great.
Yeah, and so as we kind of get back to the present here, you were touring in Australia in February, is that right?
Yeah, like end of January, February, yeah.
And so that was right before
everything went crazy. And I done a tour in the UK too, and it was like, yeah, it's crazy.
Were you home at least when everything started shutting down?
Well, I was actually in Los Angeles, and then I live in Switzerland, but I was in Los Angeles, so I went back, and then I made it back home to Switzerland, around like March 20th or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was right down to the last little bit.
But right now you're in LA and you're able to go back.
Visiting my daughter. Well, this is the first time I've been back in like 5 months, so
Yeah, but it's a smooth trip and everything. Travel was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
You'll be able to get home.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad you're doing okay. And
trying to do my best.
Before we wrap, tell me a little bit about the music scene in Switzerland. I haven't talked to too many people from Switzerland. So.
Well, I haven't done too much music in Switzerland. There's definitely a music scene and everything, but I mostly play the UK, France, and Germany are really big markets. Especially the UK is like a really big market for music, and it has been for many years. Sort of with the British invasion and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix actually getting famous in the UK. And so many bands. So it's really, I would play those places, but Switzerland is, it's definitely a scene going on there too. I just was so busy with Germany because it's so big in the UK, can travel a lot there,
And are things okay there right now? Like how are they?
It's slowly getting back a little bit, but we just, every day is a new adventure kind of. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
That's all we can do, right?
So yeah, absolutely.
Take it one day at a time. Well, it's great to hear your positivity, Kirk. And
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to chat. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your visit with your daughter as well.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.